Have you ever experienced a moment that completely changes your life? I'm Grace, and in one shocking call, my world of trust and success was shattered, igniting a battle against a hidden web of deceit. As secrets unravel and every digital footprint reveals more of a far-reaching conspiracy, I invite you to join me on this journey for truth and renewal. Don't miss a single twist. Hit that subscribe button and share your thoughts in the comments. I still remember the moment when everything changed. It was late at night, and I was alone in my sleek, modern office in New York. The room was bathed in a cool blue light, and the distant hum of the city seeped through the windows, a constant reminder of a world that never sleeps. I was reviewing the day's minor reports when my phone's shrill ring shattered the silence. The screen flashed an urgent message: divorce. Sell the business. In that instant, my heart skipped a beat. I picked up the phone with trembling hands, not quite believing what I was seeing. My mind raced as I tried to process the words before me. It was Evan Mitchell, my ex-husband, my former partner, announcing his decision with chilling detachment. I could almost hear the cold finality in his voice, even though he was miles away. He had decided that our marriage was over, and, as if that weren't enough, he insisted on liquidating the business we had built together. That single call, so abrupt and devoid of emotion, shattered the fragile peace I had clung to for years. At first, shock and disbelief washed over me. I felt betrayed, not just on a personal level, but as the CEO of the company I had nurtured. I stood there for several agonizing moments, my mind swirling with a storm of emotions. I questioned everything. Had I been so blinded by routine success that I failed to see the seeds of this betrayal? Was Evan's decision truly just a personal vendetta, or was it part of a broader, more manipulative agenda? As I slowly regained my composure, a deep internal fire began to kindle within me. I realized that this moment, however painful, was a turning point, a call to arms that demanded I reclaim both my dignity and my destiny. The cool blue light of the office suddenly took on a new meaning, reflecting the icy determination that was now settling in my eyes. I knew I could not allow Evan's cold, calculated decision to dictate the future of the company I had built with so much passion and hard work. In a quiet, powerful moment of resolve, I signed the divorce documents. I did so without a word, my gaze fixed on the window as if the sprawling cityscape outside could offer some solace or guidance. Every stroke of my pen was a silent vow, a promise to myself that I would take back control of my life and my business. The betrayal, as bitter as it was, became the catalyst for a revolution inside me. I was no longer the victim of circumstances. I was a woman reborn, ready to fight for justice, truth, and the legacy I had worked so hard to establish. Determined to understand the full scope of what was happening, I immediately initiated plans for an internal audit. I ordered my team to comb through every financial record, every ledger, and every transaction. There was no time to waste. If Evan's move was indeed part of a larger scheme, I had to expose it before it tore everything apart. As I sat back in my chair, still processing the enormity of the moment, I found myself staring out the window into the dark night. The city below glowed like a constellation of possibilities, and amidst that vast, indifferent expanse, a spark of determination lit up within me. I silently promised that I would not let this betrayal define me. Instead, I would rise from the ashes of this shattered trust, reclaim my power, and protect the legacy that was rightfully mine. Almost as if on cue, an urgent email alert popped up on my computer screen from the finance department. Subject line: discrepancies detected. My pulse quickened. It was a sign that the storm was just beginning. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the battle ahead. With one final glance at the city, I knew that this was the start of something monumental, a revolution that would reshape not only my life, but the future of our entire enterprise. I can still feel the echo of that shocking call as I sit before my computer in the sterile back office of our finance department. The harsh fluorescent lights illuminate rows of desks where the incessant clatter of keyboards and printers creates a clinical, almost oppressive ambiance. Tonight, however, my focus is solely on the financial reports laid out before me, a sea of numbers that now seem to whisper secrets I'm desperate to uncover. It all began when a glaring anomaly in one of the reports jolted me into immediate action. I was sifting through the latest quarterly figures when a single figure, out of place and glaringly significant, made my heart race. There it was, an international transfer that simply should not have been there. The amount was modest compared to our usual operations, but its very presence, a red flag among meticulous accounts, sent a chill down my spine. I leaned closer to the monitor, squinting at the rows of data, as if the truth might reveal itself in the flicker of a misprinted digit. My pulse pounded as I compared this aberration against our past records. It was clear that this transfer was not a one-off mistake. It was a deliberate attempt to mask a deeper, more systemic issue within our company's financial practices. As I navigated through the digital ledger, I uncovered more irregular transactions, small amounts that, when connected, formed a pattern too deliberate to be accidental. The atmosphere around me grew even more tense. I could sense the anxiety among the accounting staff as they exchanged furtive glances while working in hushed tones. Their unease mirrored my own rising suspicion that we were entangled in a vast network of fraud. Every keystroke and click deepened the mystery, and each new irregularity bolstered my resolve to get to the bottom of it. I immediately flagged the suspicious transactions and began compiling a detailed report. I meticulously noted every anomaly, a transfer here, a duplicated entry there, that collectively painted a disturbing picture. It wasn't long before the full extent of the deception began to reveal itself. Multiple covert transfers, each carefully hidden behind layers of routine financial data, were materializing on my screen. The evidence was mounting, confirming my worst fears about the integrity of our company's financial practices. In that moment, a surge of determination washed over me. I could no longer ignore the signs that our systems were being exploited. I swiftly mobilized my internal IT and finance teams. I sent out urgent instructions to secure all relevant data and initiate a formal investigation into these discrepancies. My voice was steady as I coordinated with department heads, emphasizing the critical nature of every irregular detail. I could hear the urgency in their responses as they began isolating the suspect transactions and reviewing audit logs. Even as I organized this rapid response, I found myself reflecting on the deeper implications of what I was uncovering. Each line of questionable data seemed to echo a betrayal, not just of the company's financial integrity, but of the trust we had all placed in our systems. I felt a profound responsibility to expose this network of deceit, to ensure that no one could manipulate our hard-earned success for personal gain. Time seemed to blur as I worked through the night, the cascading numbers on my screen forming a relentless digital torrent of evidence. The backlit display pulsed with encrypted codes, each flicker a stark reminder that this trail of fraud was both extensive and far from over. I couldn't shake the feeling that what I had uncovered was merely the tip of the iceberg, a prelude to an even larger scandal that could shake the foundations of our business. My mind raced with questions. Who was orchestrating these covert transfers? How deep did this web of fraud run? And most importantly, what would be the consequences once this deception came to light? With every passing minute, the stakes grew higher and my resolve only strengthened. I vowed then, as I stared into the hypnotic cascade of numbers, that I would follow this trail wherever it led. The truth, however obscured, had to be revealed. As I reviewed the latest batch of data, my eyes were drawn to the persistent flicker of encrypted codes along the bottom of the screen. They pulsed in a steady rhythm, a silent, unyielding beacon of the digital forensics that awaited in the next phase of my investigation. It was as if the data itself was urging me to push forward, to dive even deeper into the labyrinth of numbers and uncover the full extent of the fraud. I sat back for a moment, letting the enormity of the situation sink in. My heart pounded with both fear and determination. The path ahead was uncertain, shrouded in a haze of digital enigma and corporate betrayal, but I knew that I had no choice but to press on. The integrity of our company, and perhaps even the legacy I had fought so hard to build, depended on it. Just then, as if to punctuate the gravity of the moment, the screen shifted. The encrypted codes began to merge and transform, their patterns hinting at an even larger network of illicit transactions. I took a deep breath, steeled myself, and prepared to take the next step. The trail of fraud was extensive, and I was ready to follow it to its very end. I stepped into a world lit not by natural light, but by the pulsating glow of LED screens in our high-tech forensics lab. The atmosphere was thick with the hum of processors and the quiet buzz of real-time data streaming across multiple monitors. As I took my seat beside Eric Johnson, an experienced FBI cyber investigator whose calm, analytical demeanor instantly put me at ease, I felt both a surge of determination and a shiver of apprehension. Tonight, we would follow the digital breadcrumbs that had been left scattered in the wake of our company's financial betrayal. The moment I settled in, a mysterious line of code flashed across my primary monitor. It was brief, almost imperceptible, yet impossible to ignore. A digital breadcrumb that immediately set my heart racing. I leaned in closer, scrutinizing the string of characters. There was something off about it. It didn't belong to any routine log or expected transaction. Eric caught my eye and nodded, silently affirming that this was exactly the kind of anomaly we had been hunting for. Our surroundings, a dimly lit room filled with the glow of state-of-the-art forensic equipment, seemed to shrink around us as we focused intently on the data. Every flicker on the screen, every hum of the machines, felt charged with hidden meaning. I could sense the gravity of the situation. This wasn't just about numbers on a screen, but about unmasking a web of deceit that reached far beyond our immediate control. Before long, our forensic software flagged a particularly suspicious blockchain transaction. The alert was sudden and jarring, a stark contrast to the steady flow of mundane data that usually filled the screen. The transaction was distinct. It deviated sharply from our normal operational patterns and carried markers that hinted at manipulation. I could feel a mixture of excitement and dread. This could be the key to unraveling the entire scheme. Eric and I dove into the digital labyrinth, tracing the transaction through layers of blockchain entries and encrypted data. With each click and scroll, a series of interconnected transactions began to emerge. It became clear that this was no isolated incident. Every link we uncovered pointed toward a larger, more complex fraud that spanned international borders. The sheer scale of it made my head spin. I remember thinking, how deep does this rabbit hole go? The turning point came when we uncovered what I can only describe as a hidden paper trail. A sequence of digital footprints that connected seemingly minor transfers to offshore accounts. This was the breakthrough I had been waiting for. The evidence was irrefutable, laid out in pristine detail across the digital ledger. Every transaction in that chain was a building block in a massive scheme, meticulously designed to siphon funds and obscure their true destination. My pulse raced as I realized the enormity of the conspiracy. This was the smoking gun that could expose everything. Energized by our discovery, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I knew then that we couldn't stop here. The trail was vast, and we needed to bring in additional financial experts to validate our findings. I made a mental note to expand the investigation and secure all the evidence we could gather. The truth was slowly coming into focus, and every bit of data only intensified my determination to uncover every last detail of this fraud. For a long moment, I simply stared at the panoramic view of our digital dashboard. The screen was now alive with a flurry of new lids, encrypted codes, transaction logs, and irregular entries that pulsed like a living organism. It was both mesmerizing and unsettling. Each flicker represented a piece of the puzzle, urging me to follow it further into the labyrinth of deception. I felt a profound connection to the data, as if the very electrons on the screen were whispering secrets about betrayal and greed. Amidst this digital symphony, I could hear my own heartbeat, steady and resolute, echoing the promise I had made to myself to bring light to the darkness hidden within these numbers. Just as I was about to delve even deeper, my phone buzzed sharply. I glanced at the screen and saw an urgent text from Charles Monroe, a renowned financial expert whose insights had proven invaluable before. His message was brief but pointed. He had corroborative evidence that could tie our findings to a broader international network. The text sent a thrill through me. It was the perfect segue into the next phase of our investigation. I took a deep breath, my mind already racing with possibilities, and prepared to relay this new information to Eric. The digital trail was unfolding before our eyes, and I knew that each step we took brought us closer to exposing the full extent of the fraud. As the data continued to flow and the encrypted codes danced across the screen, I felt both the weight of responsibility and the exhilaration of a battle just beginning. I walked into the boardroom with a heavy heart and a determined mind, knowing that the evidence we had gathered was about to transform into a clear picture of betrayal. The room, located in a prestigious financial center in New York, was bathed in sharp, focused lighting. Every surface gleamed with a clinical precision, and the tense atmosphere made it feel as if the very air was charged with urgency. I couldn't help but feel that today everything would change. As the meeting began, a sprawling digital map of transactions suddenly materialized on the large projector screen at the front of the room. The map was intricate, lines and nodes connecting disparate points across the globe, hinting at a vast and sinister network. I stood beside Charles Monroe, whose steady presence and seasoned expertise as a financial analyst lent credibility to the gravity of what we were witnessing. Alongside him, several other financial experts observed in silence, their faces set in expressions of concern and determination. Charles was the first to speak. He confirmed that the anomalies we had detected were not random, but were, in fact, linked to multiple international accounts. His voice was calm but carried an undeniable urgency as he explained that these transactions formed a sophisticated web of deceit. Each data point on that digital map was like a piece of a puzzle, and as we connected them, the bigger picture of systemic fraud began to emerge before our eyes. The realization hit me hard. This wasn't an isolated incident, but a carefully orchestrated operation that spanned borders and involved shadowy players operating behind layers of legitimate transactions. My heart pounded as I listened to Charles detail how these covert transfers, hidden within routine records, collectively pointed to a deliberate manipulation of our financial systems. The room seemed to shrink with every revelation, and I could sense the gravity of our discovery weighing on each of us. As the discussion deepened, tension mounted. Our team worked feverishly, cross-referencing disparate data points and scrutinizing every irregularity. I watched as the experts debated the possible implications of each connection. Hidden resistances and evasive maneuvers by unknown entities added layers of complexity to the situation. The more we uncovered, the more it became clear that this was a systemic operation, not merely a series of isolated mistakes. The climax of the meeting arrived when, after hours of intense scrutiny, the full extent of the fraudulent network was laid bare. The digital map on the projector became a blazing tapestry of evidence. Every connection, every suspicious transaction clearly documented. Heated debates erupted among the analysts, and a palpable sense of uncertainty filled the room. In that charged moment, every attendee understood the magnitude of what we had discovered. I felt a surge of resolve as I absorbed the weight of the evidence. There was no turning back now. I knew that we had to act decisively. With unwavering determination, I announced that I would bring all the amassed evidence directly to the company's board. My voice was firm as I laid out a plan for public exposure and immediate legal action. It was a risk, but it was a necessary one if we were to restore integrity and transparency. As the meeting drew to a close, I clutched a small data drive in my hand, the smoking gun that encapsulated the entire conspiracy. My expression was a mix of resolve and apprehension. I knew the journey ahead would be fraught with challenges, but I also believed that the truth would ultimately prevail. The drive felt weighty, not just in its physical form, but as a symbol of the power of undeniable evidence. In that moment, as I gazed at the data drive, I could almost sense the next phase of our battle beginning. The visual of the drive slowly dissolved in my mind, merging with the hectic scene of the impending board meeting I was about to face. I braced myself for the confrontation that awaited, fully aware that the revelations from today would set the stage for a dramatic upheaval in the leadership of our company. The digital map, the fierce debates, and the overwhelming evidence all pointed to one inescapable conclusion. Change was inevitable. I felt the pulse of a revolution stirring within me, a call to stand against corruption and to fight for a future defined by integrity and truth. I walked into the boardroom with a mixture of steeled determination and a sense of foreboding. The resonant sound of a gavel echoed through the room as murmurs spread among the gathered board members, setting the stage for a showdown that I knew would alter the course of our company's future. The room itself was a picture of corporate gravitas, a luxurious, high-stakes environment in New York, where polished surfaces reflected the serious expressions of those present, and every detail spoke of decades of tradition and power. Taking my place at the head of the table, I felt every eye in the room on me. My heart pounded as I prepared to unveil what I had painstakingly compiled over the past weeks, a dossier of damning evidence that would expose the fraudulent activities swirling around Evan Mitchell and Lydia Carter. I could sense the underlying tension. The atmosphere was thick with anticipation as board members exchanged uneasy glances, unsure of what was to come. I began by laying out the evidence, a meticulously compiled mix of digital records and hard copy documents, each piece a cog in the elaborate machine of deceit. With deliberate clarity, I detailed how irregular transactions, covert offshore transfers, and manipulated data had not only jeopardized our financial integrity, but had also betrayed the very trust that underpinned our business. My voice, though measured, carried an unwavering resolve that reverberated around the room. Every document I presented was a testament to the truth, an unyielding chronicle of betrayal and malpractice. Almost immediately, the room erupted into a cacophony of dissent. Evan, whose once unshakable authority now wavered, tried to interject with vague explanations and defensive rhetoric. Lydia Carter, standing by his side, appeared visibly rattled. Her attempts to undermine my revelations came off as desperate and disorganized. I could see board members leaning forward, some with skeptical expressions, others with a dawning realization that the carefully maintained facade was beginning to crumble. As the debate intensified, a respected board member, long known for his integrity, rose from his seat. His voice, firm and unyielding, cut through the clamor as he publicly denounced Evan's unethical practices. That moment was pivotal. His courageous stand signaled a definitive shift in the room's balance of power. In that charged instant, it became clear that truth was winning out over deceit. The board's murmurs turned into supportive nods, and even the most skeptical seemed to lean in, compelled by the force of the evidence. Buoyed by this shift, I pressed on. I articulated a clear, decisive plan to overhaul our company's leadership structure, one that would purge the corruption at its roots and restore integrity to every level of the organization. I proposed immediate measures: a complete internal audit, the suspension of any transactions linked to the fraud, and the initiation of legal proceedings against those responsible. My words, delivered with heartfelt conviction, resonated deeply within the room. The board began to rally behind my vision, and I felt the tide turning in our favor. Yet even as I secured this newfound mandate, a lingering uncertainty remained. Whispers of potential regulatory intervention and the prospect of long, arduous legal battles permeated the air. The gravity of what lay ahead was undeniable. And despite the board's support, the future still seemed shrouded in doubt. I could sense that not everyone was ready to embrace the radical changes I was proposing, and the undercurrents of dissent hinted at further challenges on the horizon. As the meeting drew to a close, I glanced down at my smartphone. A series of urgent notifications began to flash on the screen, alerts from regulatory agencies signaling that external forces had now entered the fray. These messages were a stark reminder that our internal victory was only the beginning. The battle in the boardroom had reshaped the company's leadership, but the war against corruption was far from over. I left the boardroom that evening with a heavy yet hopeful heart. I knew the path ahead would be fraught with challenges, legal entanglements, and perhaps even more betrayals. But the decisive shift in that room had ignited a spark, a belief that truth and integrity, though hard fought, could prevail. Every step I took from that moment forward was a step towards reclaiming not just my personal legacy, but the very soul of our company. I could feel the tension in the air even before I entered the emergency meeting room at our corporate headquarters in New York. The atmosphere was electric. Flashing screens, piercing alarms, and a palpable surge of urgency all signaled that tonight was the culmination of everything we had been working toward. Every detail in the room, from the stark, dramatic lighting to the quick, anxious whispers of those around me, reinforced that we were on the brink of something irreversible. I took my place at the head of the table, my heart pounding steadily as I prepared to unveil what we had been calling the smoking gun. In my hand lay a meticulously compiled dossier, a comprehensive package of digital records and physical documents that left no room for denial. The evidence was overwhelming, a testament to months of painstaking investigation that exposed every hidden facet of the fraudulent operations. I knew that what I was about to present would not only shake the very foundations of our company, but also force regulatory bodies to step in. The moment arrived. With a steady, unwavering voice, I began to present the dossier. I walked the room through each piece of evidence, showing clear, unambiguous links between offshore transfers, manipulated financial records, and covert transactions that pointed directly to the corrupt practices orchestrated by Evan and his cohorts. As I spoke, I could see the expressions on the faces of the board members change from skepticism to shock. The gravity of the evidence was undeniable. Almost immediately, the reaction was swift and fierce. Regulatory officials who had been monitoring the situation closely began to move in. Their presence added an extra layer of pressure. I could sense that key investors were now on high alert, their eyes wide with disbelief as they absorbed the reality of what was unfolding. Evan and Lydia, who had long tried to maintain their composure, became increasingly frantic. Their attempts to interject or offer vague explanations only deepened their exposure, making it abundantly clear that their efforts to mask the truth were futile. The atmosphere reached a critical peak when, amidst the mounting chaos, the company's financial systems were abruptly frozen by regulatory authorities. The announcement sent shockwaves through the room. This was the moment when the corrupt empire began to crumble before our very eyes. I watched as panic spread across the faces of those who had once supported Evan, while the board members, now visibly relieved, nodded in agreement with every word I said. In the midst of this upheaval, I made a solemn declaration. With firm resolve, I announced my commitment to a complete corporate restructuring, a promise of transparency, ethical governance, and a new beginning for the company. I explained that every process, every transaction would be scrutinized and reformed. The old ways, tainted by deceit and manipulation, would no longer have a place in our future. I could feel the weight of responsibility, but also the surge of hope that comes with the certainty of change. Even as the meeting continued in a frenzied pace, I took a moment to absorb the scene around me. Regulatory agents moved methodically through the building, their purposeful strides a reminder that justice was now on our side. Investors whispered among themselves, and the once dominant aura of corruption began to dissipate. Despite the chaos, I felt an inner calm, a firm belief that this was only the beginning of a long, necessary battle against corruption. Just as the intensity of the meeting began to ebb, my phone buzzed with a decisive alert. It was a message from Elizabeth Green, one of our most trusted board members, informing me of an urgent shareholders meeting that had been called. This message was the final piece in the puzzle. It signaled that the next step, the transformation of our company's leadership, was imminent. I took a deep breath, glancing one last time at the frozen financial dashboard and the departing regulatory agents. The smoking gun had done its job. It had forced the collapse of the fraudulent regime and set in motion the winds of change. Yet I knew that while this battle was won, the war against corruption was far from over. The path ahead would be fraught with challenges, but I was ready. With renewed determination, I gathered my documents, ready to lead the charge into the next chapter of our struggle for justice and renewal. I was deep in thought when my phone vibrated with an unexpected message. The screen lit up with an anonymous, ominous text. "Everything is about to change." In that single moment, a shiver ran down my spine, and I knew that the tide was about to turn. I quickly gathered my resolve and headed to the secluded meeting room, a dimly lit space within our boardroom where every shadow seemed to carry the weight of the company's fate. Inside the room, the atmosphere was electric with tension. I could see my trusted allies already assembled: Eric, Charles, Brian, and Elizabeth. Their expressions were resolute and determined, each of them a pillar of integrity and forward thinking in a storm of uncertainty. In stark contrast, Evan and Lydia appeared in the distance, isolated and increasingly desperate. Their presence, once commanding, now seemed diminished, like figures on the brink of collapse. We began by reviewing a series of transactions that had initially seemed insignificant, small transfers that, when pieced together, formed the keystone of the fraudulent scheme. I explained to the group how these minor transactions were not accidental missteps, but deliberate moves designed to undermine our financial integrity. With every detail I revealed, it became clear that Evan's network was built on a foundation of deceit. The evidence was irrefutable, and it struck me with the force of a revelation. Every tiny misdirected amount was a thread in a vast tapestry of corruption. The room's energy shifted as the internal power struggles started to emerge. I could sense that board members and trusted advisors who had once stood by Evan were beginning to question his leadership. Whispers filled the room, and I caught snippets of conversations that exposed the deep-seated insecurities and hubris of those who had supported him. It was as if the facade of power was crumbling before our eyes, leaving nothing but raw truth in its wake. Then came the decisive moment, a turning point that would reshape everything. The board convened for a vote, and the atmosphere grew unbearably charged. In that critical moment, the board members unanimously voted to expel Evan's cronies. The decision was swift and unequivocal, and with it, the corrupt power structure that had held our company hostage for so long began to dissolve. I could feel the relief and determination radiating from everyone in the room. It was the first real step towards reclaiming our company from the clutches of fraud. As the vote concluded, I stood there, feeling the weight of the moment and the enormity of what we had just achieved. I emerged as the uncontested leader, my authority now bolstered by the collective will of the board and the undeniable evidence we had amassed. I outlined a clear plan for sweeping reforms, measures designed to restore transparency, rebuild trust, and ensure that our company would never again fall prey to such treachery. Every word I spoke was met with nods of approval and a growing sense of unity among those present. Despite the victory, a reflective melancholy lingered in the room. I watched as Evan, his once commanding presence now reduced to disarray, gathered his belongings and left quietly. Lydia, too, appeared defeated, her eyes vacant as she slipped away. Their departure marked not only the end of an era of corruption, but also the beginning of a new order, one built on honesty and the relentless pursuit of justice. As I sat back for a brief moment, absorbing the gravity of the coup we had just executed, my phone buzzed again. A final, suspenseful email alert from Elizabeth Green flashed across the screen. The message detailed impending legal actions and public disclosures, next steps that would propel our company into its final transformation. It was a stark reminder that while we had successfully dismantled the old regime, the battle against corruption was an ongoing war, one that demanded our constant vigilance and resolve. I took a deep breath, feeling both the exhaustion of the night's relentless challenges and the stirring hope of a brighter future. With my allies at my side and the board's support behind me, I knew that we were poised to usher in a new era. The fall of the fraud empire was complete, but the journey to rebuild and renew our company was just beginning. Every step forward was a step toward a future defined by integrity, transparency, and unwavering determination. In that moment of quiet reflection, I made a silent vow. I would never allow deceit to take root again in our organization. The lessons learned from this dark chapter would light our path forward, guiding us toward a future where truth and justice prevailed, no matter the cost. The event hall was alive with a vibrant energy that I had not felt in years. As I stepped onto the stage in Silicon Valley, the upbeat music and warm, inviting lights set the tone for what felt like a rebirth, not only of our company, but of my very spirit. The sprawling modern venue buzzed with excitement. Cutting-edge technology intermingled with festive decor, symbolizing the fresh start that lay before us. This was more than a corporate event. It was a celebration of transformation, a declaration that our painful past had paved the way for a brighter, more secure future. Standing at the center of the stage, I could feel the weight of every challenge we had overcome. Surrounded by my trusted allies, Brian, Elizabeth, and many others whose support had been unwavering, I took a moment to let the significance of the day sink in. Brief flashes of media coverage reminded us all of the turbulent times that had brought us here, yet they were treated with respectful brevity. We were not dwelling on the past, but rather boldly looking forward. In a pivotal moment that silenced the crowd, I formally announced the rebranding of our company as Phoenix Innovation Group. My voice, steady and impassioned, laid out our visionary strategy, one built on transparency, ethical leadership, and relentless technological advancement. I spoke about how our journey through betrayal, hardship, and eventual exposure of corruption had forged an unbreakable commitment to integrity. Every word was a promise that we would not only rebuild, but also redefine the standards of our industry. As I continued my speech, the atmosphere shifted from solemn reflection to one of hopeful anticipation. Although echoes of past controversies briefly surfaced through murmurs and media snippets, the dominant narrative was that of regeneration. The crowd's response grew louder and more enthusiastic. Key investors made public commitments, their applause resounding as a testament to the definitive triumph of integrity and innovation. In that moment, the cheers were not just a celebration of our new beginning. They were a validation of every sacrifice made along the way. The event gradually drew to a close on an inspirational note. As the music softened and the lights dimmed slightly, heartfelt acknowledgments were shared with those who had stood by us during the darkest hours. I felt a deep sense of gratitude and unity, as if every attendee understood that our collective journey was far from over. It was evolving into a continuous pursuit of growth and ethical excellence. The promise of new opportunities was palpable in the air. Every ending, I believed, was simply the start of something greater. Even as I prepared to step off the stage, a reflective calm settled over me. I looked out at the crowd, now filled with hope and determination, and imagined a future where Phoenix Innovation Group not only thrived, but led the charge in reshaping an industry. The challenges of our past had been monumental, yet they had also been the crucible in which our renewed vision was forged. The path ahead was still uncertain, but it was undeniably bright, a future defined by progress, integrity, and the relentless spirit of renewal. In that final lingering moment, I silently vowed that our journey of justice and transformation would never waver. Our rebirth was not the end, but a continual evolution, a dynamic promise that no matter what challenges we might face, we would rise again, stronger and more resilient than ever. The journey of Grace has been one of profound transformation, from the depths of betrayal and corporate deceit to the triumphant reclamation of her power and the rebirth of her company. Through resilience, unwavering integrity, and the courage to face the truth, she has turned adversity into an inspiring opportunity for renewal. Her story reminds us that even in our darkest moments, hope can be found, and every setback can lead to a brighter future. I am deeply grateful for every step taken on this journey and for the lessons learned along the way. Now I invite you to be part of this ongoing transformation. If Grace's journey has touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more inspiring stories. Your engagement not only supports our community, but also helps spread the message of hope, resilience, and the power of truth. Every comment and like matters. Let's build a community where we uplift each other and create positive change together. Thank you for joining me on this incredible journey of justice and renewal. I appreciate your support and look forward to sharing more meaningful stories with you in the future. Remember, every ending is just the beginning of something new, and together we can continue to make a difference. Until next time, stay inspired, stay hopeful, and keep believing in the power of transformation.